Welcome to the Make Me Whole podcast, where we explore what it means to just live better. I'm your host, Joset Rosado, a proud Latina and licensed therapist, bringing that unique perspective to the conversation. So whether you're looking to deepen your relationships, improve your mental health, or simply just find more joy, this is where you need to be. Hello friends, welcome back, and I'm so glad you are here. Today we're going to talk about something pretty special. It is something that's very close to my heart because of all the work that I've personally done for myself and the belief I have in the healing journey of our inner child. So first of all, let's talk about the inner child, because I know it sounds a little bit out there, right? But it's actually pretty straightforward. It's that part of you that still holds on to those childlike moments of when you experienced happiness or when you experienced hurt. Our inner child carries all those childhood memories, some of our earliest feelings, and this part of us can have a huge impact on how we feel and behave as adults. I think my earliest memory ever, I was standing in a car. It was probably about 3 or 4 years old. And I remember we were parked and I was having McDonald's French fries. I was told that I was going to be a big sister and I had no idea what this meant. But that's not something that stuck with me as a painful memory. It's just the absolute first one I ever remember. I just wanted to bring it up as a reference point. There are things that we remember from early childhood, and that just happens to be my first memory ever. When we're talking about inner child work as adults, what we're focusing on is whether or not your inner child is experiencing hurt. Life is rough, right? And sometimes our inner child gets triggered and remembers hurtful feelings. But how do we know if it's hurting and needs some care? Well, it's like a distress signal that we get inside. If you're feeling often like you're not enough, or you're guilty for no reason, or you find it hard to draw the line with people and set boundaries, it might be your inner child asking for help. Why it matters to care for your inner child is because that hurting needs to be addressed. If we ignore our inner child's hurt, it can sneak into our adult lives, affecting relationships, our self-esteem, and most especially our happiness. So how do we start healing? Healing, especially depending on the level of trauma you might have experienced as a child, it might seem like a huge task. But like I always say, it's all about the small steps. Let's talk a little bit about inner child work and how it can start your journey to that healing. It really starts with reconnecting. It could be as simple as spending a few quiet moments each day checking in with how you're feeling or writing in a journal. Therapy, it could actually be a game changer. I know that talking about feelings can be hard, especially when you're not used to speaking to someone on a regular basis or you're worried about judgment, right? But that's where therapy comes in. There are techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy that can be really helpful. And I will tell you, after having spent a significant amount of time with a fantastic therapist, I know the benefits of being able to focus just on the thought patterns that I've had in the past and how to convert them into workable thought patterns to use now. You have to be gentle with yourself. Remember, guys, this is a journey. It takes time, and that's okay. You just have to be patient. You have to be gentle because that inner child deserves it. This is the time to show yourself some love and treat yourself as you would a friend. And remember, you're never, ever alone on this type of a journey. So when we're talking about the healing journey, I thought it would be good to share some personal stories of healing. Sometimes when we know someone else has walked through the same path, it can be incredibly comforting. So when I consider some of the work that I needed to do for my own healing when it came to my inner child, the issue I was dealing with most was the need to be a people pleaser, to be a person who made sure everyone was happy, make sure that the needs of others were taken care of first, because I truly believed that that was the only way to receive positive praise and attention from those around me. It stems back to when I was younger. I never wanted to misstep for fear of upsetting my parents, for not being seen as a good child, for making sure that I was always placed in a positive light. I was the oldest, and as many oldest children know, you are the guinea pig. And so the relationship that I had with my very young parents was that of them learning how to navigate me and then the three sisters that followed. And that didn't always leave room for the attention or the care that would be consistent. There were times where they could be silly, and there were times where they could be cariñoso, like really loving, but they were so inconsistent that it made it difficult. There were times where I was unable to satisfy the needs that I had on my own in the hopes of doing what they wanted me to do, my parents, so that they wouldn't get upset, so that they would be able to accept me for who I was in whatever space I was living. Usually they had a lot of opinions about what they wanted me to do and how they wanted me to do things and what they felt was the best course of actions of how to manage. And none of it was wrong, except that it didn't give to my individual spirit. And I would later come to find that in following only what was expected from me by their devise, I didn't really know who I was internally. I didn't realize that my own feelings were valid and that I could have an opinion and that I wasn't going to put a stain on my family if I decided to go in a different direction. I remember always saying goodnight to my parents, and that consisted of like a kiss on the cheek and a good night before I went to bed every night. But it never really followed with true emotion. It was kind of like, this is how we do things. We just follow through with that. I think my parents just had a lot of people to deal with. They were managing 4 daughters and 3 nieces. They were managing their parents. It was a lot. And so as a result, my inside person, my little person, was always fighting to get their attention in the best ways that I knew how. So much so that when I became an adult, I thought that's what you do. You make sure everybody's happy with you. You make sure everybody's taken care of, everybody's good, then I'm good. And that's not the case. I fought with the little girl inside that just wanted to be accepted and approved for who she was and what she did, and who stood there just wanting her parents to wrap their arms around her, hug her, and tell her that she was loved. My inner child was so afraid of making mistakes because it just felt so heavy to make the wrong choice. Don't make the wrong choice or you're going to have a really bad life. And I don't know if that came from my parents being so young and having had children and starting a new life. Because as a little kid, I didn't know that was a struggle. So I became very proactive in doing a lot of this inner child work. I had to accept that I was a child and I couldn't fix certain situations. What I did was I became very anxious and I became a person who did not give enough to themselves. My self-esteem was on the ground. So I had to go back and see, what are the things that made me feel peaceful? What did I believe I was admired for? Whether or not my family admired me for those things. What were the highlights of my day? What did I admire about myself? What do I forgive myself for this particular week? What are compliments that I might have received? I really needed to focus on the negative beliefs that I had on myself or about myself and where they came from. What kinds of unhelpful feelings or ideas I got from anyone when I was a child. I had to ask myself, do you play the victim? What do you think that is? And how did I let others dictate how I felt? And it was the best thing I could have done for myself. It was the best gift I could have given myself, because I was able to go back in and tell that child just how special they were and just how important they were and just how certain things weren't such a big deal and how other things were just as important. Healing my inner child, it's been a long road. But the more I healed, the more I started to feel like my true self. And for the first time, I've been able to truly love and accept who I am. And that's what it's all about, loving and accepting all the parts of ourselves. Remember, every step you take is a step closer to being whole. And I hope that you'll consider focusing on that healing if you feel it's something that you need. Healing our inner child can be really a transformation, and it allows us to fully accept ourselves, break free from the past, and build those healthier relationships. Thank you so much for being here today and listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to reach out to me via email at josette@mmwpodcast.net. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Make Me Whole Podcast. Remember, complain less and do more, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.